He's here.
Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Brian O'Neill.
Political science professor emeritus, intellectual and humorist, Dr. Robert A. Heineman is with us.
I hope I've got a few laughs for everybody today, Brian. Yes.
Okay, well, since we last left our heroes, Bloomberg and Warren are out of the race. How does that affect Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden?
Well, I think first, Brian, we need to alert our listening audience, to the fact that the pundits generally have no idea, frankly, what's going on out there in the political sphere. So as you note, we had this landslide, and how are you going to stop the momentum of Bernie Sanders? He carried, actually he didn't carry that many. He tied Buttigieg in Iowa and did well in New Hampshire and in Nevada, but with fairly low turnout. But somehow there was this idea that there was some sort of a landslide coming down the pike here, to mix metaphors. And part of the problem, of course, was that Biden was sort of disappearing about this time. But now we've had the South Carolina primary, and Biden did quite well. This, of course, which caused Buttigieg and Klobuchar to pretty much pull out of the show. And then we had, of course, the Super Tuesday. And again, that's the big comeback kid and all that sort of thing with regard to Biden. But frankly, it's not clear he did all that well on Super Tuesday. Now, he did well in terms of the amount of money he spent, in terms of the number of offices he had open, and the time he spent going to various states in terms of campaigning. So that basically it was his name recognition that helped him. But the basic dynamic here on Super Tuesday was the concern of people running for the House, people running for the Senate, people running for governor, people running for county legislature on the Democrat ticket. Their concern was pretty clear that they did not want Bernie Sanders at the head of the ticket. So the offices down ticket, so to speak, clearly, I think, did everything they could to prevent Sanders from getting many delegates from their state. And the result was that the leftover really was Joe Biden. Now, of course, you also had the opportunity to vote for and support Mike Bloomberg, but obviously nobody seemed particularly interested in him because, for one thing, you really can't rely on where he's coming from, what he's going to do. So I think the point here is that the lack of, viable candidates at the top of the ticket sort of defaulted then to Biden. And the point is that activated a lot of political Democrat organizations in these, I think, 14 states or 12 states that were up on Tuesday. So Biden didn't have to do much of anything. These down-ticket candidates did everything they could to help him. And it worked pretty well for him, and I think it's going to be sort of the story from here on in. On the other hand, given that, Bernie Sanders did reasonably well on Tuesday, and I think he's not going to go away. So that in terms of delegates, he and Biden remained fairly close. And if you took Elizabeth Warren's delegates out of the mix or added them to Bernie's, they would be almost tied, Biden and Bernie. So the point of this is that Biden is going to have, I think, the basic Democrat organizations pulling for him, And Bernie, when he says the establishment is working against us, is absolutely correct. They are.
Can I stop and ask a question on that?
Well, let me just make the point here.
Okay, go ahead.
That since it's not a winner-take-all primary anywhere, Bernie is going to continue to amass delegates. He's going to get above 15% in all these primaries, and that means he's going to get additional delegates. So it's going to be very hard for Joe Biden to get to 1,900. He's going to need to go into the convention with the majority. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Tucker Carlson said the other night the establishment, the Democrat establishment wants Biden to be the candidate because he's in a Biden is in a weakened situation with his health and mental state, and Tucker says Biden would be easy to control in that condition. Your thought?
No, that's absolutely correct. I think, as one of my good friends in Alfred the other day said, they want Biden in there because when he gets in there, they'll just kind of push him aside and move on without him. And
will it be Andrew Cuomo next to him?
well, it could be, because now, obviously, who the vice president is becomes very, very important. And I don't think Michelle Obama is interested in that spot. Hillary Clinton probably is interested in that spot. And but I do think Andrew Cuomo is certainly viable in that situation. And my view has been, which I've expressed on this award-winning show several times, has been that Cuomo was expecting Biden to either fold or be the nominee, and he is, I think, interested in that VP spot. Now, it's possible if the convention is brokered, Cuomo could go in there as a favored son candidate and with some delegates of his own, or just go in there and serve as a compromise candidate. But no, he's a definite possibility as a VP candidate. On the other hand, Amy Klobuchar, I think, is also a viable possibility. And she, by pulling out, and she basically, I think, gave Minnesota to Biden Tuesday. So, and I understand he called her and thanked her for it. So she's earned some obligation there from Mr. Joe. But going forward, and I noticed, I think I tuned in on Wednesday at Bernie's press conference over the noon hour. It was good. He handled himself very well, and it's very clear he's sticking to his basic issues, and that's the way he's going to pitch the campaign. So the idea is he doesn't want to get personal. He doesn't want to go calling each other names. He likes Joe. He just disagrees with Joe. But the point Bernie's making is, and I think he's going to make it again and again, is that Joe's got a lot of baggage there that he's going to have to defend. And if the Democrats want to go with him, they're going to have some policy positions, I think, that are not going to appeal to a lot of the working class Democrats.
Can I jump in there on that one?
Well, sure.
Okay, the talk shows yesterday, Thursday, we're playing some of these old clips from the early 70s of Biden saying things that, the old rule, if Trump had said it back in 73, Trump would be all done kind of thing. Your thoughts, that's the rule that the conservative talk show hosts apply to these. Your thoughts on this audio surfing thing, does it hurt Joe Biden?
Well, I think from the 70s it doesn't make much difference, no. But you get up into his comments in the 90s and early 21st century. He, for example, backed the Iraq War. He backed the NAFTA treaty. He backed the Pacific Trade Agreement. He's backed a number of things that have not turned out particularly well for the working classes, especially in some of these Midwestern states. And so I think clips from that period and on those sorts of issues, I think are going to hurt Biden. And of course, then they have the whole problem of his son Hunter, and you got some pretty recent clips on that as well. And I'm sure Hunter is standing by right now, just waiting for another opportunity to pick up $1 billion job somewhere over there in Central Asia. So Biden carries a lot of baggage, and to hook himself to say, well, gee, I'm Barack Obama's surrogate here, probably is not going to be enough. Although Obama may well come out and probably will endorse him if he gets the nomination, which will help him.
Can Biden beat Trump in November? Is that a possibility?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, no, it's certainly the idea that these things are all foregone conclusions. I think we got a little taste of that in 2016. So we'll just have to wait and see. On the other hand, we've made the point here before, and I've seen that Magala, is that his name, the former campaign person for one of the Democrats. I don't know which one.
Yeah, I kind of know who you're talking about.
At any rate, he's make the point that Trump is going to drop Pence and pick up Nikki Haley, and I think that's a possibility.
Does Trump dislike Pence?
No, I don't think so at all. But in terms of appealing to the so-called suburban women, Nikki Haley obviously makes a better candidate. Plus, again, you have to wait and see whom Biden picks for his VP candidate. If he picks Cuomo, then it's not that big a deal. But if he picks a woman, Klobuchar or someone of that sort, then Trump may feel he has to find a woman to run with him. And Nikki Haley obviously would be a pretty effective candidate.
How much do you think people care as far as Trump supporters go? How much do you think the Trump supporters care if Pence is vice president or if Nikki Haley is vice president?
I am not certain that they do care. I agree with that. I think, though, that in terms of bringing in independents and, again, the so-called suburban women vote, Haley would certainly help. And you got to remember that a lot of these suburban women are Republicans. And I've got people, who will not sign petitions because so-and-so supported Trump. They're registered Republicans. So it is an area that Trump is vulnerable.
Talking to Dr. Robert A. Heineman on the Schumer statement. Aside from what Schumer said...
Explain to people what Schumer did.
He made a statement that...
that statement, Brian.
He was at a pro-abortion rally.
Where?
In Washington, D.C.
Where in Washington, D.C.?
I only saw the close-up of the clip. I'm guessing outside the Capitol or maybe outside the Supreme Court.
Yes, on the steps of the Supreme Court.
Here's the exact quote. He said, Gorsuch and Kavanaugh have released the whirlwind and will pay the price.
Yes. I don't know if that's exactly, I think you're taking that a little out of context, but that's the major point. Yes, that's outrageous to go on the steps of the Supreme Court and for the minority leader in the U.S. Senate to make that kind of threat against Supreme Court justices. First of all, it puts them in a very awkward spot in terms of how they vote, feeling that they may appear to be caving into Schumer or for some reason standing up against him. And as you know, Chief Justice Roberts has issued a statement saying that this is inappropriate and actually dangerous to be undertaking that kind of threat. So it really is. From my point of view, it indicates to me that Schumer has his back up against the wall. He's really, seems to me, kind of losing it in terms of holding together Democrat support across the country. because all this is going to do is rile up the evangelicals and the right to life people. I mean, they're really going to get pumped up on this point, and they have every right to be. But here's the point. The Supreme Court is hearing a case, and what has been happening here, of course, is the states have been nibbling away at the whole abortion rights of women and nibbling away at Roe v. Wade. And the case that's before the Supreme Court, or was before the Supreme Court, basically involved a Louisiana statute that said that for clinics and doctors to perform abortions, they had to have access to a hospital within the area. So basically, Louisiana was insisting that these abortions, I think, had to take place in a hospital setting, and the argument was that in terms of safety and such, that made some sense, and I guess it does. But the clinics sued, and I think probably a number of abortion doctors, I don't know how many are left in Louisiana, sued, claiming that this infringed their woman's right, their right to perform abortions on women. Now, the key issue here, and I think this is the basis on which the court's going to decide the case, is that these clinics don't have any standing to sue. They don't have any specific harm that has occurred to them. They have what they're claiming what's called third-person standing. In a case, you have the person who's injured and the person who has done the injury. Those two have standing. And to bring in somebody who is tangential there, they have to somehow establish some sort of harm as a third person. And it seems likely that the court can step out of this and simply refuse to overturn the lower court decision, which would then uphold the Louisiana law. And then, of course, limit the ability to provide abortions in Louisiana. Now, the real problem here, Brian, and that's what concerns, I think, Schumer and a number of the pro-abortion people, is that what may well happen is that, and you get some of these abortion cases going, dealing with procedures and other aspects of the abortion issue, somewhere along the line, 5 members of the court are going to step forward and simply say Roe v. Wade should be overturned. And they're going to take that as pull that string and basically unravel the whole abortion standards that are in effect today. And that's what's got Schumer frightened, I think. And he may be right. I don't know.
I was wondering, is it an age thing? I guess he's 69 years old, but I was kind of wondering, he got carried away at this rally.
Yes.
And said some stupid things. And he kind of acknowledged it the next day, said he shouldn't have used the words that he did.
Well, he may have. I don't know.
Does this, I have 2 questions. One, is there any rules in Washington that say that members of Congress are not supposed to put pressure on members of the Supreme Court to vote to judge a case in a certain way? And B, does this help the pro-life movement, this statement from Schumer? Does this help?
Well, I think we just made the point. It does help the pro-life movement. I don't think there's any question about that, and it's going to make it tough on some of these guys trying to run for re-election to the Senate. But in terms of putting pressure on the members of the Supreme Court, nothing quite as specific as this in my mind. However, during the 1970s, you had efforts to try to impeach Chief Justice Warren, and you had efforts to try to impeach Justice Fortas for liberal decisions that they had been made and liberal decisions that they were making. So that's obviously a form of pressure, but to get on the steps of the Supreme Court and rouse a group of activists, as you know, and you being a member of really a leading member of this House or Senate. I mean, I've never heard of anything like that before. And again, I think it shows that Schumer and the Democrats are increasingly under pressure here. And I don't know what's happening that it's got Schumer worked up, but it seems to me that it's an indication something's broken loose there.
To touch on the death of former Congressman Amo Houghton, who died Thursday at the age of 93. Amo, I suppose one of the things he'll be remembered for politically was that, he voted against the Gulf War back there in 91. I think he was one of the few Republicans that did.
Yeah. Well, Amo, a very decent fellow, and tended to be, much more of a Rockefeller Republican, obviously, than the Newt Gingrich conservative approach to politics. Although I think he's basically pretty conservative, still he reached out, and at one point there, I think he had voted something like 48% of the time with the Democrats, and so when Gingrich came in, they eliminated the subcommittee that Amo was supposed to chair. And I think it was kind of a message to Amo, look, get on the same page here with us, or you're just not going to get much in terms of power. On the other hand, Amo, that's the way he was. He's independent, and he was going to vote the way he thought was the proper way. Certainly, as far as I was concerned, I think as most people would say, a very decent fellow. And
yeah, that's what his former press spokesman told me once. And Jim Middleton at O'Mara's office said that he told me once he worked for Houghton. He said he was a great guy to work for. Congressman Tom Reed put out a statement saying that Reed's parents were classmates and close friends with Houghton.
Right. Yeah, no, he for a man as wealthy as he was, I mean, you could sit down and talk to him and shoot the breeze just as easy as you could with anyone else.
Yeah, and he used, I should say, he did not use his power to get out of World War II. He went into the Marines,
absolutely.
Battle of the Caribbean there.
Right. No, we could use a few more Amo Houghtons around, I think.
With that, we'd better get going. Dr. Heineman, as always, great having you on.
Well, thanks for asking me, Brian.